Hello, fourth grade math educators. This is your curriculum update for your first unit of study. To access your curriculum documents in the Curriculum and Instruction Schoology group, select Resources on the left. Then Curriculum Documents, Elementary, and fourth grade. Within the Mathematics folder, you'll notice an updated Google Drawing with links to resources to help you plan. There's a link to the weekly scope and sequence, high priority learning standards, vertical alignment, clarification, and horizontal view of your curriculum, as well as a link to the response to intervention resources. Across the bottom, you'll see links to the Google documents for the curriculum in Understanding by Design or UBD format. You click on Unit 1 button, that's going to bring you to the curriculum document for Unit 1 on place value with addition and subtraction. But first, let's go back to the weekly scope and sequence and take a look at what's included in this first unit of study. The weekly scope and sequence has been updated slightly from last year, specifically to include English language proficiency standards in language objective format. In the first unit of study, we start the year building your classroom environment and relationships. The content begins with representing numbers and interpreting place value, then comparing and ordering numbers, rounding numbers, and adding and subtracting whole numbers. So you'll notice these 4 topics outlined clearly in the curriculum document. So let's take a look at the unit document for Unit 1. One more time to access that, back in Schoology, you'll click on the button for Unit 1 next to Google Docs. In Understanding by Design or backward planning, Stage 1, the desired results, is really about what we want our students to know, understand, and be able to do as a result of this unit of study. I've outlined those 4 topics from the scope and sequence in this unit considerations section. I've worked to make it clear to you exactly what you need to do to design and plan for your students this year in these topics. For representing numbers and interpreting place value, I've encouraged you to consider the pattern in the base 10 number system, how it can be represented cube, long, flat, cube, long, flat, using the base 10 blocks, and how to use slight pauses to scaffold to support students as they learn to read large numbers with internal zeros aloud. We're incorporating stem and leaf plots since it connects in a great way to place value. The next week is about comparing and ordering numbers, and I really love using a classroom number line for this. We want to avoid using tricks and focus on quantity when we consider greater than, less than, or equal to. I really like this video, thinking about quantity. This video shows how to determine if the greater than or less than sign is pointing a certain way, and it's based on quantity. So the 5 blocks is greater than the 3 blocks. Rounding numbers is important because we want the children to estimate and solve problems with compatible numbers. So I really want them to consider the context of the story problem or problem situation when determining how to create compatible numbers. When they learn to add and subtract whole numbers, or continue their learning on this rather, I want them to consider using strategies in a developmental way. These videos share for you and possibly for the students what these different strategies look like and how they can be used to solve problems. You can see here the strategy of adding by place using expanded notation looks like this. All of the videos are explained like this for you or for your students to understand the different strategies. Now, in Understanding by Design, Stage 2 is about evidence, or what is it that the students can do to show they understand the content. So again, aligned to those 4 topics of the weekly scope and sequence, here are some tasks the students could do in order to demonstrate understanding. Now, we know that our students come to us with different levels of academic readiness, so it's important to consider the prerequisite skills and how we might pre-assess those in order to provide scaffolding in small groups. So I've included a few prerequisite skills and corresponding pre-assessments for you to consider. Stage 3 of UBD is designing the learning experience. What are the students going to do in order to understand the content? So again, aligned to those 4 topics of the weekly scope and sequence, here are some resources to consider. I've updated this and edited it down so that these are all high quality and aligned resources for you. I want to draw attention to a few of them. Representing Numbers and Interpreting Place Value is a Keynote learning journal that I created that looks like this. I've provided you with an image of that pattern I mentioned in base 10 blocks with cube, rod, flat. Cube, long, flat, cube, long, flat. So you can see the pattern that we see using 1, 10, 100, 1,000, 10,000, 100,000 in the base 10 system and how it can continue. This is an interactive journal, so the students are able to drag the values into the columns and build a number in expanded notation accordingly. So they can drag these values to show maybe 1 billion, 100 million. And so on. In the next pages, they'll see how to build a number here and connect it to expanded form by moving these red rectangles around the values according to the place value. How to visualize 1 part per million and If the World Were a Village are resources to consider when you are working with your students with these large numbers. From TED Ed, How to Visualize 1 part per million is a great video and learning experience with visuals and descriptions about parts per million. This STEM and Leaf Plot Learning Journal is another resource that I created in Keynote so that students can see how the numbers are built in a stem and leaf plot and connect that to the place value. And then there's some opportunities for them to collect data and create stem and leaf plots themselves. Like, how many minutes of exercise did you get last week? How many photos are on your camera roll? Or how many acts of kindness did you commit today? There are other resources for you to consider down here for the students as you continue to design learning experiences for this unit of study.